in the afternoon. "Mr. Witherspoon." He called out to the empty hallway, but there was no answer. He looked back at the machine. A small, brass bell near the ceiling began to tilt, its strings stretching thin. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. "No," Dr. Sinclair muttered to himself. "This is crazy. I am a doctor." But then he pictured the island of Tatoa disappearing beneath the waves. He pictured Santa Barbara shaking. "A tambourine," he whispered, his eyes widening as he remembered the next sequence of the machine. "I have to find a tambourine right away." He ran to the door, looking out into the hallway. "Excuse me," he called out to a passing tenant. "Can you help me? Do you know where I can find a toy tambourine? If in the next few months you happen to notice that there has been a sudden spate of minor catastrophes in the world, or if things are just not going quite right, do not despair. Remember that Edgar Witherspoon's replacement is still learning how to make those precise, delicate adjustments. But do not worry too much. His education will not last long, and soon the balance of the world will be restored. Perhaps, in your quiet moments, you might offer a silent word of thanks to a physician whose practice has extended far beyond the walls of his clinic, reaching out to the well-being of the entire planet. Dr. Jeremy Sinclair now offers a very unique form of preventative medicine, a quiet service found only in the deepest, most wonderful corners of the Twilight Zone. The afternoon sun filtered through the dusty Venetian blinds of the office, casting long, amber slats of light across the mahogany desk of Dr. Jeremy Sinclair. It was a room designed for quiet contemplation, smelling faintly of old leather, peppermint tea, and the unspoken anxieties of 100 different souls. For 15 years, Dr. Sinclair had sat in his high-backed leather chair, listening to the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner and trying to make sense of the human mind. He was a man of quiet patience, with silvering hair at his temples and a face lined by years of sympathetic listening. To the world, he was a pillar of stability, a master of clinical logic. But lately, a profound weariness had settled into his bones. His patients came to him with their worries, their fears, and their broken dreams, and he did his best to patch them up with therapy and gentle advice. Yet, he often wondered if he was merely treating the symptoms of a larger, more chaotic world that was slowly spinning out of control. His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp, rhythmic tapping on his office door. Before he could call out, the door swung open to reveal Mrs. Milligan. Mrs. Milligan was a woman of formidable presence. She was the landlady of a sprawling, somewhat dilapidated apartment building on the north side of the city, and she carried herself with the air of a captain navigating a permanently storm-tossed vessel. Today, her floral print blouse seemed to crackle with indignation, and her handbag was clutched against her chest like a shield. "He is crazy," Mrs. Milligan announced without preamble, stepping into the room and closing the door behind her with a decisive click. "That is what he is, Doctor. A loony, a nutcase, a genuine wacko." Dr. Sinclair sighed softly, offering a warm, inviting gesture toward the empty armchair across from him. "Please take a seat, Mrs. Milligan. Tell me who we are talking about." Mrs. Milligan marched over and sat down, her posture rigid. "My tenant, Doctor, Mr. Edgar Witherspoon, Uncle Edgar, as his niece Cynthia calls him. The man is a menace to my peace of mind. He is always looking for things, and I do not mean normal things like a lost set of keys or a pair of reading glasses." "What kind of things?" the doctor asked, leaning forward and resting his elbows on his desk. "Things like 3 paper clips," she said, counting them off on her fingers, "or a chrome coat hanger, or 1 patent leather tap shoe. Just 1, mind you, not a pair. He rummages through trash cans on the street. He goes to the municipal garbage dumps and sifts through the piles like he is searching for buried treasure. He is always bothering my other tenants, asking them for the most ridiculous items. One day it is bicycle spokes. Then it is baseball cards from the 1950s. And who do the tenants complain to? Yours truly. They come to me, think it is God. And then I think, no, if it were God, he would surely have a much deeper, more commanding voice. This voice is very quiet, very gentle, and very direct. Would you care for a dried prune, doctor? Oh no, thank you, Dr. Sinclair said, rising from his stool. I was just leaving. But you have only just arrived. Edgar protested gently. I must go, Mr. Witherspoon, Dr. Sinclair said, carefully navigating his way back toward the entrance. But please be careful. Oh, careful, Edgar warned as the doctor neared a hanging copper wire. One bump and everything could change. Dr. Sinclair stepped out into the hallway, his mind spinning. I have no idea how the thing works, Edgar called out as he began to close the door. All I know is that the voice tells me what the world needs and I go get it. Goodbye, Dr. Sinclair. You keep up the good work, Mr. Witherspoon, Dr. Sinclair said, still trying to maintain a professional, supportive attitude. We could call your creation a sculpture. Would that make your niece happy? What? Oh no, Edgar said, his face falling. If she thinks it is just art, she won't understand the urgency. Oh, by the way, doctor, if you happen to run across an old tuba, would you bring it by? I need it in 2 hours. A tuba? Dr. Sinclair asked. Yes, a tuba, Edgar confirmed. It is very important. Dr. Sinclair promised to keep an eye out, though he had no intention of searching for brass instruments. He returned to his clinic, spent the rest of the day in a state of distraction, and eventually went home, unable to shake the image of the delicate, humming machine in the basement on Elm Street. The next morning, Cynthia arrived at the clinic with an official-looking document in her hand. Dr. Sinclair met her in the reception area. Cynthia, please, don't do this, Dr. Sinclair urged her as they walked toward his office. Uncle Edgar, please, Cynthia said, her voice filled with a desperate, loving concern. It is just for 3 days. Just 3 days while they observe you at the hospital. It is for your own safety. Dr. Sinclair looked behind her and saw Edgar standing there, flanked by 2 gentle but firm hospital orderly workers. Edgar looked small, vulnerable, and deeply sad. It is too long, Edgar whispered, looking at Dr. Sinclair with pleading eyes. 3 days is far too long. The machine has to be maintained. It must be kept in perfect balance every single hour, or things will begin to slide. Mr. Witherspoon, Dr. Sinclair said, trying to be gentle but realistic. You hear voices. You must understand that this is not normal behavior. You hear voices, too, Edgar countered, his voice remarkably calm. No, Mr. Witherspoon, healthy people do not hear voices, Dr. Sinclair explained. But you hear mine, don't you? Edgar asked. That is not the same thing, Dr. Sinclair said. Why? Edgar asked, tilting his head. What is the difference between a sane man hearing a crazy voice and a crazy man hearing a sane voice? Maybe the truth of the world is somewhere in the very middle, doctor. You do not understand the great risk you are taking by keeping me here. The orderly workers gently guided Edgar toward the observation ward. As he walked away, Edgar suddenly stopped, his eyes widening as if he had just received a physical shock. He looked at the clock on the wall. I knew it, Edgar whispered, his voice trembling with a profound, quiet grief. There goes Tatoa. What is Tatoa? Dr. Sinclair asked, stepping closer. Edgar looked at him, tears welling in his old eyes. A tiny, beautiful island in the South Pacific. What time is it, doctor? Dr. Sinclair checked his wristwatch. It is 3:17, Mr. Witherspoon. At 3:17 in the afternoon, Tatoa became history because of you, Edgar said softly, his head bowing as the orderlies gently led him through the double doors of the ward. Please, doctor, there is still time to save the rest. It will take me days to clean up this junk if the machine falls apart. Keep her away from it. Remember Tatoa. Dr. Sinclair stood in the corridor, the words ringing in his ears. He walked back to his office, feeling a sudden, cold weight in his chest. He sat at his desk and tried to focus on his paperwork, but his mind kept returning to Edgar's words. A classic case of grand delusion, he told himself. The patient, feeling tired and useless in his retirement,